All right. Hi, class. Welcome. So we just finished reading The Power of Books by Perul Segal. Now you're going to be reading independently Surrendering by Ocean Vuong. If it's useful, you can follow along with me in this recording. I'm going to be reading the essay out loud and also going through the questions that are in the margins. One final note before we start. I think the best way to go about this is to have the video open in one tab. So imagine your video is here, and then the reading open in another tab. When it's time to pause and answer the questions, you can just go ahead and pause that video and then go back to the reading. Um, Also, if I'm talking too fast or too slow over the course of this video, this is going to be posted on YouTube. So you can either make the video faster if you want to get through it faster and you can process and understand, or you can make it slower if I'm going too fast and you like me to go slower. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. Directions are up here. For this assignment, you are independently reading this reader history and literacy autobiography in class. As you read, you are highlighting passages that stick out to you in the text. Like before, you will also be answering questions spread throughout the text, like this one. But unlike before, you will be reading like a writer directly on the text. So if you notice any passages with techniques you would like to use in your own writing, comment on those passages, explaining what it is from this passage you want to take away and use for your own writing. And you should have some experience with this after reading The Power of Books in class. Okay, here we go. This is Surrendering by Ocean Vuong. Reading and writing, like any other crafts, come to mind slowly in pieces. But for me, as an ESL student from a family of illiterate rice farmers who saw reading as snobby, or worse, the experience of working through a book, even one as simple as Where the Wild Things Are, was akin to standing in quicksand. Your loved ones corralled at its safe edges, their arms folded in suspicion and doubt as you sink. My family immigrated to the US from Vietnam in 1990. When I was 2, we lived, all 7 of us, in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hartford, Connecticut. And I spent my first 5 years in America surrounded, inundated by the Vietnamese language. When I entered kindergarten, I was, in a sense, immigrating all over again, except this time into English. Like any American child, I quickly learned my ABCs thanks to the age old melody, one I still sing rapidly to myself when I forget whether M comes before N. Within a few years, I had become fluent, but only in speech, not in written word. Okay, we are answering our first question right now. Uh, First question is, what do you think the author's word choice here tells us about this experience? Why do you think he uses the word immigrating to describe his experience? All right. So this would be a good time to pause the video, answer this question, and then when you're ready, you can play again and we'll continue the reading. All right, here we go again. We're on to the next paragraph. One early spring afternoon, when I was in 4th grade, we got an assignment in language arts class. We had 2 weeks to write a poem in honor of National Poetry Month. Normally, my poor writing abilities would excuse me from such assignments, and I would instead spend the class mindlessly copying out passages from books I'd retrieved from a blue plastic bin at the back of the room. The task allowed me to camouflage myself. As long as I looked as though I were doing something smart, my shame and failure were hidden. The trouble began when I decided to be dangerously ambitious, which is to say, I decided to write a poem. Where is it? My teacher asked. He held my poem up to the fluorescent classroom lights and squinted, the way one might examine counterfeit money. I could tell by the slowly brightening room that it had started to snow. I pointed to my work dangling from his fingers. No, where is the poem you plagiarized? How did you even write something like this? Then he tipped my desk towards me. The desk had a cubby attached to its underside. And as I watched the contents, or sorry, and I watched as the contents spilled from the cubby's mouth, rectangular pink erasers, crayons, yellow pencils, wrinkled worksheets where dotted letters were filled in, a lime dum dum lollipop, but no poem. I stood before the rubble at my feet. Little moments of ice hurled themselves against the window as the boys and girls, my peers, stared, their faces as unconvinced as blank sheets of paper. Weeks earlier, I'd been in the library. It was where I would hide during recess. Otherwise, because of my slight frame and soft voice, the boys would call me Pansy and Fairy and pull my shorts around my ankles in the middle of the schoolyard. I sat on the floor beside a tape player. From a box of cassettes, I chose one labeled Great American Speeches. I picked it because of the illustration, a microphone against a backdrop of the American flag. I picked it because the American flag was one of the few symbols I recognized. All right, we've read a good bit at this point. If you haven't highlighted any passages to read like a writer, right now might be a good time to go back and look for some passages to highlight. So I'd pause the video and do that. And then once you're ready to play, I'll start with our next paragraph. All right, we're at the bottom of this page now. Through the headset, a robust male voice surged forth, emptying into my body. The man's inflections made me think of waves on a sea. Between his sentences, a crowd. I imagined thousands roared and applauded. I imagined their heads shifting in an endless flow. His voice must possess the power of a moon, I thought, something beyond my grasp, my little life. Then a narrator named the man as a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I nodded, not knowing why a doctor was speaking like this. But maybe these people were ill and he was trying to cure them. There must have been medicine in his words. Can there be medicine in words? I have a dream, he mouthed, or sorry, I have a dream, I mouthed to myself as the doctor spoke. It occurred to me that I had been mouthing my grandmother's stories as well, the ones she had been telling me ever since I was born. Of course, not being able to read does not mean that one is empty of stories. My poem was called If a Boy Could Dream. The phrases promised land and mountaintop sounded golden to me. And I saw an ochre lit field, a lushness akin to a spring dusk. I imagined that the doctor was dreaming of springtime. So my poem was a sort of ode to spring. From the gardening shows my grandmother watched, I learned the words for flower had never seen in person: foxglove, lilac, lily, buttercup. If a boy could dream of golden fields full of lilacs, tulips, marigolds, I knew words like if and boy, but others I had to look up. I sounded out the words in my head, a dictionary in my lap, and searched the letters. After a few days, the poem appeared as gray graphite words, the paper a white flag. I had surrendered, had written. All right, I'm going to pause there and then we're going to get into the last bit of this reading. If you need time to highlight, make any comments, go ahead and do that now. All right, you should have paused and pressed play again. Here we go. Looking back, I can see my teacher's problem. I was, after all, a poor student. Where is it? He said again. It's right here, I said, pointing to my poem pinched between his fingers. I had read books that weren't books. I had read them using everything but my eyes. From that invisible reading, I had pressed my world onto paper. As such, I was a fraud in a field of language, which is to say, I was a writer. I had plagiarized my life to give you the best of me. Awesome. We got through this reading together. Just two final questions. You can comment with your answers. I should have explained this earlier, but one way to comment easily, and I will go over this in class as well, is to just click on the sheet, and it should allow you to post your comment remarks. So you can answer question one here and answer question two in another bullet point like this. So, question one, make an inference. After reading this reader history and literacy autobiography by Ocean Vuong, where do you think Vuong got his inspiration for the poem we read in class, Abad was Burning City? And if you don't remember that poem, there's a link right there. And you can even hear Ocean Vuong read it. All right, question number two. At the end of his essay, Ocean Vuong states, there's a typo there, I'll fix it now, you probably won't see it tomorrow. Ocean Vuong states, I had read books that weren't books, and I had read them using everything but my eyes. What do you think Vuong means by this? What do you think he means when he says, I had read them using everything but my eyes? All right, those are the two questions. This is the end of the video. Thanks for reading along with me, and I'll see you in class tomorrow or right now if you're reading this right now. Bye, folks.